Join us on this morning on ITV TMI. Like what I said before, we went on that break is all about the looming strike. NLC, TUC, allied labor forces, so to speak, coming together to say government of the day, both the public and private sector. This is what we want. 30,000 naira benchmark. Deal or no deal. That's what is happening right now. But as at yesterday, the federal government called for a meeting, but it was reported that NLC refused or failed to attend. What are the reasons? Anyway, we're going to find out from our analyst here in the studio. New Peng saying that are going to support NLC to the letter. People are apprehensive. What will happen when we talk about movement? What about what is happening even right now that ASU is on strike? Strike, strike, strike everywhere. I don't like that ringing. Anyway, with me here in the studio, I have a labor devotee. When we talk about activism, is there. When we talk about socio-economic discourse, political discourse, workers' welfare, he is well grounded in it. Please join me. Welcome, Dr. Joe Alibe. Welcome to the show, sir.
Good morning.
Appreciate your coming.
Thank you,
Wilson.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
I see very close to him also is a human rights activist. We talk about analysis on topical issues, both local and international. He is well grounded. Jimmy, welcome. No other person than Leo Atakbo. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you, Wilson.
Appreciate your coming.
Viewers.
Okay, TUC, Labour, and allied forces, they've come together to say, look, this is the benchmark and it's going to be the deal. Federal government is saying, for now, no deal. This is what we can pay. And yesterday, a meeting was called for by the federal government for them to have a robust discuss. But it's like Labour refused to attend. So take it up from there, since you are in there with them.
Yes.
Why did Labour refuse to attend the meeting called for by the government to at least see if they can shelve the strike action?
Thank you very much. That meeting was not necessary in the first instance. That meeting was not born out of, the government was not acting in good faith. What is the purpose of the meeting? To discuss what? We have agreed on a figure, a tripartite discussion, negotiation. Government was represented, labor was represented, organized private sector was represented. In that meeting, an agreement was reached on the 5th of October. Don't forget that 30,000 naira was not a demand of labor. Labor demand was 66,500. We have to compromise. I want you to put on record that this state government were represented in that meeting. 21 state governments sent in memos to say this is what we can pay. And also there were public hearing in the 6 geopolitical zones. That of the South-South zone was held in Port Harcourt, and we were there. The state governments were represented. They made input. We had an agreement. All government need to do is to translate that figure to the National Assembly by way of, as a bill. And it becomes an act of the National Assembly, and we go ahead, we move forward. To us, what government is doing right now is a delay tactics. It's an attempt to slow down the wheel of progress. It's an attempt to blackmail labor, because this meeting they called yesterday was not necessary at all. An agreement has been reached. Let's stand by that agreement. If you think you don't want to stand by that agreement, we go back to the negotiating table, which of course we are not ready to do, because an agreement has been reached. For over 1 year we were on it. So that meeting was not necessary, and that's why we're not there.
All right. Leo, you heard him say that meeting wasn't necessary. That was the reason why Labour refused to attend. Are they right by boycotting the meeting called for?
Well, the situation here is that there is disagreement between two parties, government and labor. For me, any opportunity to resolve the logjam should be explored. But I think that there's a fear on the side of Labour that that meeting was called as an ambush of Labour, and Labour does not want to be ambushed by the other party. The federal government had gone to court and sought an injunction from the court to restrain Labour from proceeding on strike. I wouldn't know why government would take that step. It's like government is having some wrong persons, advising them at this point in time. Because the issue of minimum wage didn't start now. The negotiations have been on even before now. They've laid their issues on the table, their cards on the table, and these have been discussed over and over again, as you heard from the comrade, Aligbe. The issue is that there is problem with government, insincerity on the part of government, I must tell you. Because if you go to negotiation with open mind, with open heart, things will work well. You find a situation where Labour sat with government, if you heard him clearly, Labour sat with government, and government put their constraints on the table, and then Labour said, okay, this is what. He also talked about compromise, and that's expected at the point of negotiation, give and take. That it started with 60, whatever.
66,500.
500. Which, of course, if we were in a real society, check that what in the dollar equivalent of that, what is it? What does it amount to? That the least paid worker should earn 66. How much will 66,000? What does it really amount to? But they came down to 30,000. And you hear government say, it will cause inflation. That don't pay them, it will lead to inflation. But we are aware of how much members of National Assembly they earn monthly. Huh? That doesn't cause inflation. But the little the worker will earn is the one that will cause inflation. No. So that's really disappointing. So there is insincerity on the part of government. Because if not for that, why did government rush to court? And let me tell government this. Rushing to court is not a problem to seek injunction, to stop Labour from proceeding on strike. But when the Labour decide to remain in the office and they do no work, will court compel them to work?
All right.
Even while they're in the office?
I'll come back to you on that.
So government must have open heart,
okay,
in addressing this issue.
All right. Now, he mentioned the court.
Yes.
The industrial court. They gave an injunction.
Yeah.
Stay execution, Labour don't go on strike. But Labour is insisting that are going to go on strike. Then that makes them to be running against the law. Make them dissident, so to speak, in that regard. Can they obey court injunction?
You are not correct. Two things you must take note here. Labour is not aware of any court injunction. As we speak right now, we don't have any paper, we don't have any letter, we don't have any injunction telling us that we have been restrained. It's just people are saying it on television, which anybody could say. The attorney, the person who mentioned it, if you have been very consistent in listening and monitoring news, you find out that is the Solicitor General, the Attorney General of the Federation that came out to say, oh, we have obtained an injunction. We have not been served. And because we have not been served, we are not aware. Then number two, I want to say this, that even if we are served any injunction, to us, that injunction is a black market injunction, and we will not obey it.
Black market in what terms?
Because it's a black market injunction because it was not, you didn't secure that injunction properly, and also two, it was done in bad faith, and because of that, we will not obey it. And if you look at it, if you must come to equity, you should come with clean hands. Is government coming with clean hands? this government, do they obey court injunction? It should start from them. So, to us, if you must come to equity, you must come with clean hands. So, issue of injunction, we are not going to obey it. Because one, we are not aware that there's injunction, we have not been served. And if there's any injunction at all to us, it should be a black market injunction, which should not be obeyed. So that is the fact that injunction is. But to further elucidate on what my comrade here has said, is that, you see, I begin to wonder, those in government, what is happening to them? Is it that, I don't want to use any wrong language that will not be suitable.
Please
but
don't.
let me say this. Is it that, what is their motivation? Because if good governance is your motivation, if the well-being of the people is your motivation, you should come with clean hand. You should be open. We are very open. Nigeria belongs to everybody. Nobody wants to rock the boat. Labour is interested in ensuring that this government succeed, because what any government that succeeds is for the good of the people. But unfortunately, those in government think that they can do hide and seek game. This time around, they are not going to succeed. And I want to say it emphatically, that it's not just NUPENG that we will support. Of course, NUPENG is part and parcel of the NLC. It's an affiliate of the NLC. The airports will be closed.
Airports too?
Of course, they will be closed. Every industrial union that's an affiliate of the NLC, TUC and UCL, they are going to participate in this strike. And we want to make it abundantly clear that the government should come and be realistic. They cannot play hide and seek game with us. And let me just tell you, what they want to do by all this meeting is to have a delay tactics. That on the eve of election, maybe when we drag to December, they'll say, oh, the opposition party is using labor. They want to blackmail us. And we will not accept that blackmail. That's what this government is up to. Because if you listen to Boss Mustafa,
you're not sure.
I'm sure.
You're not sure.
Let me tell you.
Right now, you're bringing politics into the matter. Is this political? Because you're bringing in 2019 election. Is this political?
Let me tell you. Yeah. If you listen to Boss Mustafa last night, the Secretary of the Government of the Federation, he said that I am expecting the tripartite committee to send me a report. Once the report comes, I will seek audience with Mr. President. And thereafter, the National Council of State. And I'm going to ask myself, what is this man talking about? National Council of State? He said, after that consideration, we will not transmit to National Assembly. What tripartite? You see, minimum wage must be an outcome of a tripartite negotiation. And these bodies are just government, labor, and organized private sector. If you not take the outcome to another body, it is no longer tripartite agreement. But you want to subject to another scrutiny, to another authority, the National Council of State. I don't know why the SGF should mention that last night. And you are telling me that it's not politics? Okay. Of course it's politics.
It's politics. According to your own state.
Of course.
The big question is, who's not politicizing this affair? Because Labour threatened one time that, look, if you don't give us what you're asking for going on strike, we're not going to vote you back into power. Don't you think Labour is playing politics with all this? Because he's accusing the government right now of playing politics. That is, Labour also is doing the same thing. Everybody just having their cards in their hands, all about 2019.
Well, that is why government have to be responsible. These are negotiations that ought to have been concluded a long time ago. Say 1 year ago. By now, we ought not to be talking about minimum wage. So if you allow minimum wage to drag on to election period, then it is you who is playing politics with it, and not the other way around. But let me say this to Labour. Labour today say they do not have any court order not to proceed on strike. But if Labour is served, properly served, Labour should obey the court order. The reason is that Labour must be seen to be above board. They should not just be heard to be above board, they should be seen to be above board. If government is being irresponsible, government, I mean, labor should not toe the line of an irresponsible government.
No, they're not saying that they're not responsible.
No, wait.
Because according to them, they're very responsible. That's why they're having this series of meetings.
I'm using a conditional tense.
Okay, if.
If.
All right.
If labor should not toe that line, labor should obey the court order. It is in the interest of labor to obey the court order. And when you receive the order and you obey the order, perhaps the next step labor should take is to vacate that order. And once they vacate the order, going through also the court process, then they can also proceed on the strike. So it is important that labor be responsible group, so that government do not cash on that to clamp down on labor, which is also a possible thing government can do. And don't forget that even among the rank and file of labor, we also have people who can easily trade off labor even within the rank and file and even the top echelon of labor. If you even ask, do the workers really trust their leaders in the struggle? Why is it that it's only now that we're even hearing of strike? In the past, labor was also interested in how the economy was faring. The suffering in the land, labor was interested, used to be interested. But lately, even when the economy is going down, government is misbehaving. Labor,
Hold on.
labor doesn't show up.
Mr.
Doesn't
Lee,
come to the rescue
Mr. Leo,
of the ordinary Nigerian.
Mr. Leo, that word government misbehaving, I want you to please retract it, because we're not having a government that misbehaves, please.
When government do that which citizens don't want, take actions, or fail to act in a way that will improve the living condition of ordinary Nigerians, we expect labor to rise to their defense, particularly of the worker who bear the brunt. For instance, I'll give you an example. When the price of petrol was moved astronomically, labor accepted. Oh, maybe that is how this country will fare better. But one expected that labor would have looked at the implication on the ordinary worker. But that didn't happen. We saw a complacent labor that agreed to what government did. So we expect that reaction of labor shouldn't only be on the issue of minimum wage. Because it's not only minimum wage that affect the work. That's why they tell you today that when they increase the minimum wage, that it will cause inflation. Some come out to say they cannot pay the minimum wage of 30,000 now. But I recall a few years ago when labor was going around the country preparing to go on strike to press for the implementation of 18,000 naira minimum wage, because it took a long time before some states started implementing the 18,000 minimum wage.
Right.
It took a long time.
Right.
So now, as they were going around, the governors themselves, under the umbrella governors forum, they met. Then Governor Yari of Zamfara was the chair of governors forum, and they met, and the result that they were going back home to improve their internally generated revenue, to improve other sources of income, so that they will be able to meet the overhead costs of workers in the state.
Right.
So what is playing out, it appears as if after that decision was taken by the governors, a host of them, a good number of them, went back to sleep.
All right. I'll come back to you.
Yeah.
He gave us a kind of a long history of what labor should have done in the past. They refused to do it. And he said if government, he's corrected himself by using a kind of word, he retracted it, refused to act in a certain way to please the people, Labor kept mute. When the fuel price, pump price was increased, Labor kept mute. One can deduce that Labor also in a way is at fault with what is happening, talking about the resistance by the government to pay the 30,000 naira. Would you want to toe the same line?
You see, leadership is about trust between the leaders and the followers. Don't forget, in 2012, there was strike over the increase in petroleum products. And we were called all manners of names. Then when the new administration came on board and there was an increase from 87 to 145, there were promises from government. We were promised that there were some safety nets by way of having private palliatives. We were promised palliative. And what the decision of Labour then was that, okay, let this government a chance. Because this government have promised change. You do not fight all the time. Let's give them a chance and see what will happen. But that never came.
After how many years?
3 years.
And Labour kept mute.
Not kept mute. We served several notices on government.
But no strike action to really press on the demand of fuel to the economy. But he said that.
Before we finish,
and people have the same pattern of thought.
I'm sure before we finish this discussion, you are going to ask me if strike is the only solution. Nigerians keep on asking us, is strike the only solution? That strike shouldn't be necessary. You don't apply strike all the time. We have to give ultimatum to government.
Now let's go back to the
ultimatum. Yes. After that, government promised palliative. This palliative didn't come. Then we now asked for a review in the minimum wage. Government didn't listen until we threatened strike. After we threatened strike, government was now forced to inaugurate a committee sometime June last year and was given August as the deadline to conclude discussion. We were on it. You can't be taking discussion and go on strike. Because the rule says that while discussions are on, you maintain the status quo. Of course, we have to maintain the status quo. Then, as towards the end of August, don't forget, government promised that by September, there will be a new minimum wage. At ILO meeting, the Minister of Labour now came and said, September is not feasible. It was now done on that government was playing a game. Until we were on. And somewhere along the line, government now refused to conclude discussion. We have to go on strike. Before government now promised 4th and 5th of October as date for conclusion. Of course, we have to call off the strike. Because if you are patriotic, you will understand that strike has, a very negative effect on the economy. You will not allow it. Any serious-minded labor leader or anybody in government should not allow strike to happen. Because it is difficult to recover from it. So strike should not be a thing that should be applied all the time. But yes, people may be accusing Labour that we are complacent, we didn't fight, we didn't go on strike. Well and good, but we accept it. But the issue now is that, just as he was saying, that Labour should obey that court injunction, which I refer to as black market injunction. Issue of morality, issue of trust will come in. So leadership is not just about legal. If Labour choose to call off that strike, not to go on that strike tomorrow, I tell you, they will stone the Labour leaders. So, and like Gani Femi of blessed memory used to tell us, in a state of illegality, it becomes illegal for you to be legal. We cannot afford to obey that black market injunction as it is right now, because the integrity and trust between the leaders and the followers in the labor sector will be at stake. So for any labor leader that knows honor, that want to maintain that relationship between the leaders and the followers, must ensure that this strike goes on as proposed.
Leo, over to you. He said, yes, Labour accept the blame, no problem, but this time around they're here to fight.
Well, I think that in counting the costs of, I agree totally with my comrade that strike is not the last resort. Once there's dispute. But in exploring other, tools and instruments at your disposal, one should have seen labor to have sufficiently exhausted those other instruments. For instance, if government had promised at the wake of increase in pump price of petrol that we are going to roll in some palliatives, right? Labor didn't see those palliatives. And what did labor do? You see, it is not, I was not advocating at that point, maybe strike. But if you recall, when pump price was raised in January of 2012, it was spontaneous, labor and civil society. There was a result. Government backed down because they saw the implication of that increase, the increment they made at that time on the generality. Because when you increase the price of pump price, the pump price of petrol, for instance, it has a multiplier effect on the economy, on the lives of people generally. So the cost of the local artisan that uses a small generator to drive their businesses will go up. The price of transportation, goods and services, automatically went up. Now, a new government came. Within 3 years, they increased the pump price. They didn't even consider to increase the workers' salary. And so, government had seen labor as a conquered territory. And that's why you can see this kind of hide and seek that they want to play with labor, even by the time you have declared strike. All right? And so quickly they go to secure the injunction to stop the strike. That's what I'm telling you. Labor must also be organized. I think that's the point I'm making. Labor must be organized. In being patriotic, if you tell government that this thing you have done, this policy you have brought, will bring untold hardship on the worker, that does not take anything away. Issue press releases. Tell government that, no, we will not accept it. You can even go on street walk, like before the labor call on this strike. I noticed that across the country, they went around doing some sensitization. Labor can adopt such measures to sensitize everybody, be on the street. When after the street walk, you go back to your offices to continue your work. To say, no, we oppose this policy you have put on ground. Oh, we are not happy with this price increase. Show it, express it in a way that government will feel the impact, the impulse that you have communicated to them. But labor, we need to see a vibrant labor. Like we had in the days of Hassan Sumono and all those great labor leaders. When they call workers out on strike, they sustain the strike until they achieve result. By the time they come out, anti-SAP, in the days of the military, the anti-SAP, labor was heavily involved. And once you unleash a policy, an economic policy on the nation, in a way and manner that people's incomes, people's welfare will be adversely affected, labor should respond immediately to say no. But a situation where, because you do not want to go on strike, you don't want to be seen as someone that is always using the instrument of strike, and that is the reason why you accept all the, what the government will unleash on you. No, shouldn't be that. Labor, the point is that labor must be alive to its responsibility to the workers.
All right. Complacency in this issue. According to Labour, they're accusing government of being complacent, while government, on the other hand, is accusing Labour for not being considerate, because some governors are saying that they just can't pay these amounts. After all, some of them are still owing. You talked about 21 governors asserting to the 30,000 naira minimum wage. Now, 21 out of 36 and counting. Is it really a good deal? Because others are still of the opinion that, look, we can't pay. We just whereby they approve the minimum wage, and for months, workers will not be paid. Don't you think it should come down to that 22,500 as proposed by these governors.
Okay,
so that all can pay.
So let's put it rightly. Maybe you didn't get me. I didn't say 21 governors agreed to pay 30,000. I'm talking in terms of representation.
They were
that 21 governors sent in
memos, okay,
to that tripartite committee. In that case, they were adequately represented. They quoted different figures. Some 25,000, some as high as 35,000.
Okay.
For the different states of the 21 that sent the memo. They also had the opportunity to be represented at the public hearing at the G6 geopolitical zone, including FCT and Lagos. And if you listen to all the governors, they will tell you whatever is agreed at the tripartite level, we will pay. Individually. That's what they are saying.
But not all of them.
No, all of them. Individually.
Not all of them.
No, I am
because some of them have said that they just can't pay, and some of them are still owing workers.
Which state do you want to quote?
Because
they cannot pay. There's no state that said they cannot pay. All the state governors are saying, whatever is agreed on, we will pay. That's what they told their individual workers at the state level. But at the governors forum, they now have a speaker, the governor of Zamfara State, who is their chairman, who is now saying that affordability is the issue. To be very honest with you, of the 36 states, it's only Delta State, I'm making it public now, I didn't want to say, it's only Delta State that said they cannot pay above what they are paying. All other states said they can, and some people quoted figures above 30,000 naira. So, for the governors forum, which is not recognized by law, which as a body is not part of the tripartite negotiation machinery, because they have to come individually. You cannot come as a group. You must come individually. The governors forum is just a mere association of convenience. So, as far as we are concerned, the 30,000 naira is doable, they can pay. No states, no individual governor, because they are playing politics with it. No governor will tell you at the state level, for instance in Edo State here, when we had that protest, went to submit our own listen to Governor Baseki, he said, whatever is agreed upon in Abuja, I will pay, Edo State will pay. And if you listen to all the state governors, that's what all of them are saying, individually. So it is not correct to say that they cannot pay. And you see, he mentioned about labor not fighting when there was an increase from 97 to 145. One thing is clear is that labor is a microcosm of the larger society. You cannot, in a way, divert yourself from the wind of change in the larger society. We were clamoring for change, and change came. And there was no way labor at that point in time that you want to call people out who are not willing to follow you. So we try to have a kind of understanding. And government said, okay, Paris Response Fund. The Paris Response Fund came to states to pay salary, to ensure that you have to pay the 18,000 naira, pay your pensioners and others. But that was diversion by some state governors. So to say that labor didn't pursue it, that is not too correct. But I must admit also that that firebrand, that kind of fighting spirit, especially of us, was not displayed at that point in time. Because whether you like it or not, leadership on its own supposed to be above the followers. You should have foresight. You should be able to tell them this is where we are going, irrespective of the criticisms that come. Because at the end of the day, it's what you are able to achieve for your followers that's important. So I agree with you that we didn't do enough at that point in time. But it is never late to be alive to your rights and responsibilities. And the time has come. And that is what we are doing right now.
And the time is now.
And the time is now.
Okay. I will come back to you. Now, before, I know you have so much to react to his statements and comments, but before this administration came into being, talking about the fuel pump price was increased to 145. From what you said, there was an agreement that the government said they're going to bring in palliative measure. Yes. You wait for the first, second, third, there are no palliative measure, and I choose to go on strike. What if, peradventure, somewhere along the line, this 30,000 is agreed upon? Do you think there'll be inflation in some other aspect of the economy to balance it up? For instance, pump price of fuel. may just be increased just to balance up.
Why?
And of course, because these are the questions in the minds of so many Nigerians. 18,000 naira, there was an increment. And now, 30,000 naira. You know, to balance up, there be an increment also. Inflation, like what the government is complaining about.
Let me tell you something. When Labour proposed 60,000, some people were wondering, why will Labour be talking about 60,000 minimum wage? Because, you know, once you get to the negotiation table, government will always want to negotiate downwards. You know? So, Labour ought to, or what you do, you make comparison around West African states. What's the minimum wage in Ghana? What's the minimum wage even in Cameroon? What's the minimum wage in Benin Republic? And compare it to the minimum wage in Nigeria. I don't want to go to Canada, US, and all those places. Nigeria appears to be the lowest.
It is. Not a
all over the world. And come to put it side by side with the resources this country is endowed with. And somebody is talking about inflation. It's only inflation once it concerns the ordinary worker. But when there is lifting of money from public treasury by the politician, that one doesn't cause inflation to them. So that is why I don't want to go to that argument. But looking forward on this logjam, labor needs to be organized. And I want to say that civil society is with labor in this struggle. We need a living minimum wage in this country. The average worker deserves its own wages at the end of the day. So it is not about individuals, but it's about the people of Nigeria. And that is why, if you look at the Constitution, it says, with the people of Nigeria. With the people of Nigeria is not about Mr. President, it's not about Mr. Governor. It's about all of us, citizens of this country. So when we sit on the table to discuss, people should come with open minds. People should be patriotic to this country. And let me also say this. When governors come and talk about they are not being able to pay, does that not now raise the issue of viability of states? And when people talk about restructuring of this country, to put it in a way that states should be able to pay. Why is the logjam always, why is minimum wage issue always a thorny issue in the country? Have this government sat down to reason it out? And that is because it is just in the exclusive list. It's only at the federal that you can fix minimum wage. That is wrong in itself. State governments, they need to devolve that from the constitution. Make it a concurrent thing that both states can negotiate on their own with their workers. How much they pay. Make the states viable. And that's why people are talking about restructuring. So that states can, you see, a state like Edo, you find that in the past 8 years, they've been serious about, the IGR. There are some states in this country that are just relaxed, waiting for oil revenue to be shared in Abuja every month. And they go, whatever they bring from Abuja, they say this is what is available. After they have collected the one that they will use to whatever, and then they say, we don't have money to pay workers, but we cannot pay minimum wage that is fixed by federal government. So it makes the whole thing laughable. Year in, year out, we keep turning around this circle. And people have been preferring alternatives to all of this in a way that it shouldn't cause problem. The government always want to retain this problem. There have been constitutional amendments. Why did government not say, okay, let us make states viable. Okay, remove this from this exclusive list, make it concurrent so that these new regions now, okay, everybody can, you should go and negotiate on your own and see. But federal government want to be Father Christmas to everybody. Just come to Niger Delta, lift the oil as much as you can, and sell to the international community, and then we come to Abuja every month with a cap in our hands, and we are sharing whatever we want to share.
Okay.
That's the main issue here.
He talked about restructuring. Do you think it's going to work?
I perfectly agree with him that if we want to look at the issue, to come out of this long jam or this kind of vicious cycle, there are political angles to it, there are economic angles to it. The political angle actually is restructuring. If you do a restructuring, the viability of the issue of states will not be addressed. And let me say this. There's so much resources available to federal government, which ought not to be. The federal government is controlling too much resources. And if there's restructuring, also we should restructure the allocation, devolution of powers. That is the political angle. I agree with him perfectly well. And let me say this. See, the issue of whether they can pay or not is not the issue. For instance, Edo State, the minimum wage in Edo State is 25,000 naira. Though we have issues with, in terms of the percentage increase, particularly after level 6, what obtained at the top. But Edo State, as it is legally, is paying 25,000 naira minimum wage. And you will also notice that for the past 10 years or thereabout, we have no owed salaries in Edo State. The government will always pay as and when due. But there are some other states that can't pay because they are lazy in terms of internal revenue generation. They are lazy in terms of looking at other sources of revenue. You just want to wait. With no cap in hand, go to Abuja and come back. Even when they give them the bailout, they couldn't even use it. They have to divert it. So I quite agree with him that politically there should be restructuring. But on the economic front, I want to say this. I've heard people saying, oh, inflation. I don't understand your definition of inflation and what causes inflation. But my only true understanding is that when you talk about inflation, there are different ways of fighting inflation because economies can never agree on a particular way, but depending on the situation. Right now, the purchasing power of the Nigerian worker is very, very low. And if you want to increase his purchasing power, all what you need to do is to increase the disposable income available to him or her. And once that disposable income is increased and you increase his purchasing power, the propensity to purchase will increase. In that case, it's going to have effect on the industries and the producers. So when people talk about, I don't know where their kind of economy is coming from. For instance, when you argue that, oh, if there is increase in minimum wage, what has it got to do with petroleum product?
What about our market women?
Yes.
The landlords?
Yes.
Artisans?
It will reflect on it. But the fact remains that the workers are a critical minority. Once you increase their purchasing power, it will have ripple effect, positive ripple effect, whether by way of increase. The marginal increase in other services, basic necessity, may not be as high as what is coming from the increase in the minimum wage, which will have positive effect on the economy. So when people argue, I don't know what their indices are, but one thing is clear, is that increase in minimum wage, it is not the reason where you have inflation. Inflation comes when you are inability to manage your economy very well. Don't forget that in 2011, when we had the last minimum wage, the dollar was about 150 naira. 150 naira to a dollar. But right now, it's 360 to 365 to a dollar. And don't forget that we are import-dependent nation. So when you're talking about inflation, it's not the minimum wage. It is how you manage your economy. And that's what we need to address. The exchange rate policy of government must be addressed. That has a fundamental impact on what inflation should be or not. So people should not look at minimum wage as the issue when it comes to inflation or no inflation. We should look at what is exchange rate policy of government. We should look at the issue of wastages in government. We should look at the issue of corruption in government. These are the things we need to address. And let me say this quickly. When it comes to minimum wage, they look at the ordinary worker, not the political class. I want to tell you emphatically that a supervisory councillor earns more than a deputy director in the federal civil service, a deputy director on grade level 16, who has spent about 25 to 28 years in service. A supervisory councillor earns more than him. And it's not a waste, it does not cause inflation. But when it comes to a civil servant, I mean, we need to rethink.
All right.
Put our cap.
All right.
And government must do what is right and just.
Okay, now there's a proposed meeting right now for today. What do you think Labour should do? What do you think the government should do? Because we're about to commence our descent on this discourse. The defeat started of yesterday, he gave reasons for that. But Labour said they're going to enter that of today. That one is more important to them. What do you think both parties should do?
If you ask my opinion, Labour should attend that meeting and put its position on the table. Or put it again. If they have put it before, you put it again. So you are seen not to be running away from negotiation, from discussions. You go there. The only thing is that the workers, because I hear my comrade Ligbe talk about trust.
Yes.
The labor leaders must understand that once people put trust, in you, repose that confidence in you, don't betray them. Because once they feel betrayed, when next you are mobilizing, you will not even find the workers.
You can't find them.
So they should have that at the back of their minds as they go to negotiate. So don't find yourself to be in the trap that is laid out for you. So the fact that you have gone to negotiate does not mean you should trade away the interests of the ordinary worker. You must go there and maintain the position. And once that is done, that confidence will be there. And let government respond positively. I'm sure if government respond positively, Labour, they are not people who just want to necessarily to grind down the nation. No. I don't think that is the agenda of Labour. Labour want the country to work well. They want citizens to be well paid. This time, not even well paid. At least let there be a little improvement in people's incomes, So they should go there and restate their position.
Okay,
don't stay away from that meeting.
Thank you so much, Leo Takbo. So will Labour take his advice? Maintain your position, don't shift ground.
Yes, my personal opinion, I use the word personal opinion because whatever is decided at the top by the organized labor, that should be my position. But my personal opinion right now is that we should attend today's meeting. It will not stop us from going on strike, whether we attend the meeting or not. But my worry is that NECA has been too quiet. There is a conspiracy right now from organized private sector. Organized private sector actually were the one who begged, who seriously begged in terms of negotiation that we should accept 30,000 naira. The scenario of federal government had 4 scenarios, and the list was 35,000 naira. But the organized private sector said, no, we cannot pay. Please think of the private sector, not just government. And Labour have to compromise and accept 30,000. But they have been very quiet. And I'm personally worried why they should be quiet. They should let the world know what was agreed on, because they are the third party. If the Minister of Labour is saying 24,000, governors are not saying 22,000, and we are saying 30,000 was the agreement, then the third party should say something. But they have been very quiet, and I'm very, very worried. But having said that, I want to say Nigeria belongs to all of us. Labour is not interested in grinding the economy unnecessarily. But if that's what we need to do to get government to do what is right, we will do it.
Wow. What else can we say? It's like sword drawn. Let's see who made them sheath the sword. Because we want the sword to be sheathed so that there will be peace. Because strike, believe you me, will benefit no one. Both labor, government, private sector, to lead to total shutdown or fiasco of the system in this country. Well, gentlemen, I appreciate your wonderful analysis. Thank you so much, Leo Atabu, for your wonderful analysis. And of course, Dr. Joe Aligbe, thank you so much. It's like you just carried the blood of Labour into the studio. You're going on strike. Solidarity forever.
That is, of course, that is it.
I just pray the meeting for today will be a huge success.
But that's my prayer also.
Let's see what will happen. Who will bend, who will break. Tomorrow will the strike commence, or they will be able to reach an amiable decision that will make each party to smile. Even if it's not a full smile, at least half smile. Yeah, we got something out of it. Let's see what is going to happen. Ours is just to keep you informed.